Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton and IronNet Cybersecurity SVP and former clerk, by the way, of Judge Gorsuch, Jamil Jaffer. But Mr. Paxton, let me begin with you. We heard all of the committee members get in their opening statements to the judge. Some good, some not so good. But overall, how would you characterize his opening statement today?
You know, I loved it. I thought it was a great, humble opening statement. I liked what he said about the policy and ruling on the law and the facts in each individual case, as opposed to finding some policy that he wants. I like the story he told about his family and his background. I also like the fact that he has an amazing academic background and certainly an amazing experience being in the majority most of the time. I just thought it was a very good opening statement. I think he's going to do quite well today.
Jamil, as I mentioned just at the opening there, you worked with Mr. Gorsuch. What can you tell me about him and tell our viewers what you saw in that opening statement? Is that pretty much what he's like?
Sure. You know, it's exactly who he is. You know, what's really neat about today's opening statement was you saw the man for who he is. He's humble, he's modest, he cares deeply about people, whether they're his law clerks or his family, and he cares a lot about getting the law right. It's not about making policy choices for him. It's about getting the law right, and that's what's really important in our democracy. So,
Attorney General Paxton, Mr. Gorsuch will then start taking questions, I believe, tomorrow. What are the areas do you think his critics will focus on?
You know, one of the issues may be his ruling in the Hobby Lobby case that related to contraceptive rights and the rights of religious freedom rights of individuals in a corporation. I think you might see questions about his views on the Chevron doctrine, which is giving deference to agencies, which he has questioned and obviously been in opposition to even Scalia. So I think those might be two of the issues, but I think he'll get all kinds of interesting questions about abortion rights and same-sex marriage, although I don't think he's ruled on either of those type of issues.
Jamil, is it unfair just to characterize Mr. Gorsuch as just a very conservative judge who plays to the conservative cause, and that he's just a rubber stamp for the Trump administration?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely not. I mean, you know, Judge Gorsuch actually believes very strongly, and you heard it in his opening statement, in the independence of the judiciary, that putting on the robe means something different. You're no longer an advocate, you're a neutral arbiter of the law. And his cases prove that. You know, a lot of people tried to paint him as one thing or another, but the reality is his cases show that he applies the law fairly to everybody before him. And it's not about conservative or liberal, it's about what the law requires and what Congress and our framers have done in the relevant laws.
So how do you think he'll handle those questions, Mr. Paxton, when he really is question about Roe versus Wade and all the hot-button issues that Democrats are going to try and trip him up on, or at least have their say and make their point?
Sure. He's a pretty smart guy, so I think you'll find him handling these pretty darn well. He's not going to answer specific questions about issues that might come before the court, but he'll do his job, and he'll address the questions, I think, in a very appropriate, smart way, and I think ultimately you'll see this guy confirmed fairly overwhelmingly.
Do you think that's the case without the GOP having to, use the so-called nuclear option to get the lower threshold to get the pass in the Senate?
You know what? I'm optimistic, just because this man is so qualified. I mean, if you look at it, just his legal background and his academic background, and just the way I think you're going to see him handle himself, and just as your other guest just mentioned, how humble he comes across and how really focused on looking at each case individually and making his decision based on the facts and the law of that case.
Jamil, you worked with him. What was he like? Did he have good temperament? Did he have a bad temper? Did he treat you well?
No, he's actually a great guy. You know, he's actually very down to earth. He's the guy I go to, when I have challenges in my life. My father passed away a few years back. I called him for advice. And he's a really down-to-earth human being. You know, he actually taught me how to fly fish. I was so bad at it that he finally took the rod, got a fish on the line, then gave back to me and let me reel it in. So, the kind of guy you want to have a beer with.
No better endorsement than that. Thank you both, Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton and Jamil Jaffer. Thank you both so much for taking time to speak with us about Judge Gorsuch. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it.